Meteorologist John Dawson, this is your Fox 26 YouTube tropical forecast. Want to make sure that you are up to date with everything happening in the tropics right now. Get to spend a little bit more time than what we have available on TV to talk about sort of what goes into that forecast and a discussion about what's happening out there. And yes, definitely some activity that we've been watching over the last week, and we're still left with two named systems that we're tracking at the moment, both of them tropical storms, but both of them expected to reach hurricane strength here before they fall apart or either perhaps make even some more landfall. So Henri is out in the Atlantic. No real threats to anyone for a little while. Grace, on the other hand, is definitely causing some problems for those folks down in Mexico, moving across the Yucatan Peninsula right now. Made a landfall earlier during the day over near Cozumel and has tracked across and now about to get back out over the open water. Just a reminder, all the information I'm giving you is from the 4 p.m. Thursday update from the National Hurricane Center. So that's going to be all the information as far as the timeline that we're working with here. This is from the 4 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center. And we are still looking at a tropical storm at the moment with Grace. Maximum sustained winds at 50 miles an hour. We will expect by the next couple of hours, by the end of the day for sure on Thursday, to have Grace out over the Gulf of Mexico and the Bay of Campeche. Those are some more favorable conditions. And as we go through the forecast track a little bit here, you'll see that we'll continue to see a tropical storm for much of the day tomorrow, but then as we get to the afternoon on Friday, expected to reach that hurricane strength once again with 80-mile-an-hour winds and potentially having 85-mile-an-hour winds when making another landfall in Mexico. This time it will be very early in the morning on Saturday or Friday night into early Saturday morning, making that second landfall into Mexico. So that's what's happening with Tropical Storm Grace. Again, probably going to be a Hurricane Grace again. So we're keeping an eye on that. For those of us here in the Houston area and southeast Texas, this high pressure has really become our friend as far as tropical systems are concerned. Now, locally, this high pressure is going to leave us with a weekend that is very hot, just below those heat advisory criteria, or maybe just enough to get those advisories. We'll see how we get once we roll into the weekend a little bit more. But this high pressure system is what is really pushing and keeping Grace far down in the southern portions of the Gulf of Mexico and going to keep it headed into Mexico and not making its way up towards Texas or anywhere else further in the northern portions of the Gulf. So while this high pressure is, again, keeping Grace out of the picture, it's a little bit of a pull that it still has on Henri. And we're going to get to Henri's forecast in just a moment. But remember, we've got several different things happening in the upper levels of the atmosphere. This is our water vapor imagery that we've been looking at when we talk about that high pressure over the Gulf. Well, there's other things happening besides just high pressure, and this is a trough that's over the northeastern portions of the U.S. This trough is going to dig down a little further to the southeast, and this motion of taking movements from the south to the north, this is going to lock on to Henri, and that's going to really make Henri take almost a U-turn here in a minute. For sure a right angle once we get into that forecast. So remember, Henri here is out in the Atlantic, and so this motion is really going to get locked into this movement right here. Tropical systems are big, powerful systems, but they always want to just take the path of least resistance. They don't really want to plow through a major air mass like this or a system that's moving. So once Henri begins to lock into these currents in the upper levels of our atmosphere, it's really going to pull it right up along the East Coast. So let's take a look at Henri for a moment. We talked about it. Tropical storm, maximum sustained winds at 65 miles an hour. Not anywhere near land right now. You know, Bermuda's out here. Bermuda's way over here, so it's kind of between Bermuda and the East Coast. And here's that turn, that right turn as we take it up to the north, becoming a little bit less wind shear. One of the reasons why it's a tropical storm right now is that it's catching some shear in the upper levels. And once we lose a little bit of that, we should begin to see some strengthening to at least a Category 1 hurricane, and this will continue to ride right up the coast. And notice at the end of our forecast here, we lose some of the confidence in the forecast. This kind of bubbles out a little bit, and it's no longer a really well-defined, organized cone. That's a sign of less confidence in a forecast when you start seeing something like that from the National Hurricane Center. And part of that has because you're just distance from now, how much further down the road it is in the future, but also some of those components that are moving around, that trough that's moving in, going to get caught in with a frontal system. How exactly and where exactly is that going to be, and how does it interact? Some of those questions are going to be once we get over with the weekend. But for sure, looking at a hurricane off of the East Coast, with an interest perhaps in making a landfall even. So you'll remember, we don't like to get too focused on the center of the cone. Definitely the cone is hitting the northeastern portions of the U.S. So that's something that's definitely going to have to be monitored for that portion of the country. If you've been watching our YouTube update, you've been noticing that Dr. Jim talking a lot about watching these showers and storms coming off of the African coast, looking for development, those tropical waves. Not seeing anything right now. The National Hurricane Center not expecting anything for the next 5 days from this particular area of formation. So again, we'll always kind of keep an eye on that a little bit. Just a quick update on the names, because I think it's kind of snuck up on me a little bit how many we've actually gone through so far. Henri is number 8 on the list. If you'll remember, we had to update our averages. We now expect at least 14 on an average year. We see 14 of these names that are used. So that'll be all the way to the end of this column. And this year, all of the outlooks are expecting to have higher than average, so 15, maybe even 20 named storms. So that would definitely move us well over into this column as well. So we'll continue to see how it goes as far as the names are concerned. But we've actually gone through quite a few so far, and we haven't even really got to the peak of the season yet. Just a quick reminder, I'm at John Dawson, Fox 26, social media. It'd be great to connect with you. I've also got my own YouTube channel if you want to click over there, especially the hurricane gear tests. Always a great way to help stay prepared as we're moving through the hurricane season, keeping your supplies ready if something were to come to Southeast Texas. And of course, our Fox 26 weather app. Don't forget about the app. All the tropical information goes to the app. So really, wherever you are, you're able to kind of get those updates. Use that smartphone to your advantage. And just on the topic of the hurricane gear test, keep it charged. Have a way to keep it charged for sure. Again, my YouTube channel can help with that. Make sure and tune in again tomorrow, or check in again tomorrow for another update here on YouTube on the Tropics.